Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and our guest today is Beth Malone, a Tony and Grammy Award nominated actress who made her Broadway debut in Ring of Fire. And of course, I love her from her role in Fun Home, which she was saying led her to a bunch of activism down this incredibly interesting path, because the show was 90 minutes, one act, and then she said going out on the stage door was like act 2. That's what they would call it, because so many people would get just share their personal stories, get very intimate, and sometimes would even come out to Beth and to the cast. It's just this incredible experience that shows you how much theater can really affect people and touch people's lives. So I cannot wait to share this with you. Before we get going, as always, find me online. Leave a rating, leave a review if you haven't done that in a while. I love reading the reviews, especially in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are listening. Find me online on Instagram and Twitter at theater_podcast, on the TikToks at the Theater Podcast. I got to get my own handle right. And now everybody, please enjoy this episode with Beth Malone.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today's guest is a Tony and Grammy Award nominated actress who made her Broadway debut in Ring of Fire, but may be best known in the Broadway scene for originating the role of Allison in Fun Home, and also her multiple roles in the production of Angels in America. Past TV and film credits include Reno 911, Judging Amy, The Good Wife, Brittany Runs a Marathon, and Tick, Tick, Boom. She has way more, but those are just my favorites. She played the title role in the Unsinkable Molly Brown in multiple occurrences, which now has an official cast album that can be found everywhere you stream your music. You can catch her now on 5 Days at Memorial on Apple TV. You can also see her in the series City on Fire, which is also on Apple TV, coming next year in 2023. Holy crap, Beth Malone, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, goodness, you've got quite a bunch of projects going on, and we're going to dive into all of this. And Unsinkable Molly Brown is such an unusual thing for me to have a cast album for something that didn't come to Broadway yet, that was recorded during a pandemic. And I promise we're going to get to that. But let's go back to Colorado, because I want to know about Baby Beth. What did Baby Beth do to get into theater?
Well, I was raised in this kind of like ranch south of Castle Rock, which was a teeny town south of Denver. And we didn't have, access to that kind of thing. So I actually saw Singing in the Rain on TV and ran out to the kitchen and was like, Mom, you got to see this thing. It's this music show and she was like, that's a musical. I was like, oh, well, this is where I have to go to there soon. So then I just started kind of getting my hands on cast albums and things like that. I had a record player in my room and I would just look at the, but there was a dinner theater. This was back in the days of dinner theater. And there was a place, it was about, a half hour from our house, called the Country Dinner Playhouse. It was a red barn, it was super 70s cheese, but it was near and dear to my heart. And everybody in the Denver area who came up, Amy Adams worked there, Annalie Ashford worked there. There's a bunch of people who went on to have careers. Lee Horsley started there, and
wow.
Mary Jo Catlett. There was a bunch of Denver people who ended up going off and having careers outside of the Denver area that started at this little tiny dinner theater where you would go through the buffet and you would get your little fish there was a big brick of fish that you would slice yourself a square of, and that was the fish. And it was not known for the culinary experience at all. But then, I got to see all kinds of shows there. And then when I got my driver's license at 16, I became a hostess there like filling the salt and pepper shakers and like filling the waters so I could just be in the building and watch rehearsals and kind of sneak around and see the shows 18 times. And, they did a Vita. And I remember just like, I would just like, if you're looking for me, I was watching a Vita 100 times, and that's how I got into it because, it was no Broadway close to Castle Rock. So that's what I did.
There's the Denver Center out there now, but I guess it didn't exist back.
They weren't a house that would they were not a producing house. They would house, my mom took me to see Annie, the tour, when it came through there. And I wanted to hitchhike to New York afterwards. I was like insane afterwards, my poor mother. And I saw Arsenic and Old Lace with Maureen Stapleton in Denver. And I loved it. I just would be in a trance afterwards. It was enormously powerful experiences when I would get to go see the big shows at the Denver Center. And my mom would take me, whenever she could or would, take me to make sure I saw things. And then in high school, I saw Cats, the tour of Cats came in and I met Rum Tum Tugger, who flirted with me. And then that was disconcerting. But then all those things.
Well, yeah, everyone who's in Cats, that's a separate conversation because that show is just creepy and weird in and of itself. So.
Yes, and if you're on tour as Rum Tum Tugger and you're in Denver and some high school girl comes to the stage door, you're going to see how far you can take it probably. I mean, I can't really blame him, whoever he is.
I did Arsenic and Old Lace, a decade ago at a summer stock. It was up in Michigan. So I have fond memories of that show too. Yeah.
What town in Michigan?
Coldwater, Michigan, the Tibbetts Theater.
Oh my gosh, you did Arsenic and Old Lace in summer stock in Michigan. That sounds like heaven.
It was fun. It was fun because we had there was no cast housing, so local people from the town would offer up extra bedrooms, and we ended up staying. Somebody else in the cast was staying with somebody who had a boat, so we would just whenever we didn't have shows or during the day or on our day off, we literally would just drive out on the Finger Lakes and hang out in Michigan. That was great.
Oh, awesome! I have a friend who has a cabin up there, and we've been invited a few times, and I love it. It's beautiful up there.
Mm-hmm. So then I know that you had mentioned in stuff that I was reading, and I don't know how up to date or accurate Wikipedia is in general because it's Wikipedia, but we'll talk about your one-woman shows too, that you talk about sort of your relationship with your parents and your dad specifically. And your one-woman show too is not a typical cliche coming out story. It's a coming of age story, and you identify as queer individual. And growing up though, did you feel sort of out of place at this time? And I don't actually know what the relationship with your parents was. I was just reading that there is something there.
Yeah. So I grew up, a queer kid in the middle of a rural situation, which is why, as an adult who has sort of taken my art into activism, that community is where I sort of try to put my focus a lot of time. But for when I came out as an adult, my parents disowned me for quite a few years. So wow. I was on my own for a good part of my 20s. And I did a lot of things in those years where I was out of communication with my parents, where most millennials now are still living at home with their parents at the age where I was just orphaned basically. But I met Rochelle during that time. That's my wife. We bought a house. I got my master's degree. All these huge life things happened. We got married, during that time. And it was really sad. It was sad at first, and then it got increasingly sad. It was really, really, as it went on and on and on and on, I just thought it just got worse and worse. Instead of better. I thought maybe I'll just get used to it and it won't be such a heartbreak. But the heartbreak sort of intensified the longer it went. And then one Christmas, my brother's wife, Cindy Malone, stepped up and she said, I'm having Christmas at our house. Beth and Shelley are coming. You can come or not come. And they came. And so that was the time. And it was really, my mom would still meet me and things like that. Like she would still meet me at the mall, and, we would exchange a Christmas present in the parking lot. And, it was just really grim. Not to overstate it, but it was grim. And then my dad showed up at this place at my brother's house and my sister-in-law's house. And, he had to drink like a fifth of whiskey in order to talk to me. But that by the end of the night, he said, slurred, sort of like, there ain't but one of you. That's what he said. And then the next day, it was like it never happened. Like the 7 years that he didn't speak to me, it was like we went to breakfast and with Shelley, and it was an awkward breakfast. And then after that, we just started seeing each other, randomly. And at that point, I think we were living in LA, so it wasn't every day we saw them, but I could call the house and they would pick up, and it was just like a slow reintroduction of me as an adult, because I had done so many different things since the last time, we had known each other. It was just really an odd little wrinkle in time with my parents.
Was it a religious reason or just a lack of awareness reason?
My parents are full on like Trumpers. They're Fox News watching Trumpers. And I was raised in a rural situation. My dad is from Boston, so he's like a fake cowboy. He decided to move to Colorado and become a cowboy. He had horses in Massachusetts, but I'm like, what kind of cowboy lives in Massachusetts? And so he decided to move to Colorado and like pursue the whole thing, and then like created this whole persona. So I was raised like my dad was a cowboy, but he's really like a kid from Boston. But they come with a whole bunch of bigotry. Irish guys of a certain age just have a whole litany of, they're just sitting ducks for this Fox News, those people, because they want someone to tell them the things that they were raised on, and Fox News will do that. So, it's like he's been kidnapped. I don't feel like he was a bad person my whole life growing up. And I don't think he's a bad person now. It's really hard to say like a person versus their beliefs and actions, whether you're good or bad. But, it's a very complicated situation, because now we hang out with them, because during the pandemic, we moved back to Colorado so that we could be close to them, because he's really failing now. But he's got horrible, horrible ideals. It's a horrible set of ideals that he just spits back out from whatever the TV is telling him. And you just have to, in order to deal with him, I just have to pretend like he's a crazy person and be like, okay. Yeah.
Okay,
like,
Dad.
Okay. That's
okay. Yeah.
Scary.
It's confirmation bias. It's really scary how mob mentality. Actually, I was up late last night. I couldn't sleep, and I watched all 3 episodes back to back of Trainwreck about the Woodstock '99 festival.
Yeah, I want to watch that.
Oh my God! When they're treated like animals, you start defending yourself like animals, and it's like around you. Anyway, I could digress on all of this. It was just that documentary is a fascinating case study on sociology. It's incredible. Absolutely incredible. So you should watch that.
We are these advanced creatures. We are animals.
Mm-hmm.
The line between this show I'm on, 5 Days at Memorial. It's an 8 episode limited series on Apple TV right now. 5 Days at Memorial, and it takes place over 5 days. When Katrina hit and this hospital lost power and people were trapped, and what happens in 5 short days.
Well, yeah, it's like when you don't have the basic things that you take for granted, like clean drinking water and a place to take a poo without that integrating into your drinking water. Yeah, there was some lady who was like, I had to go home because I had like sores and blisters all over my mouth because she got what is it?
Giardia? Dysentery?
Trench mouth.
Oof, who even knows what trench mouth is? Oh my God.
We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. So back to theater.
No, you think, man, I wish I was at Woodstock, and then you hear trench mouth.
Well, Woodstock 99 was the problem. The other Woodstock was totally fine.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. No, yeah. Woodstock 60, whatever it was, 63? Don't quote me on that. That was all like calm, peace and love and hippie, everyone going out there and like no violence. People brought babies out there. It was great. And then 99 was literally just to make a buttload of money, and they cut corners everywhere, and everyone was treated like shit that they ended up drinking, literally. Anyway, back to queer activism. That's way more fun.
Hey,
so
queer.
Fun Home and that show, you were on a long journey with that show and got Tony and Grammy nominated. I can't speak today. Tony and Grammy nominated for that show. But then you were saying, and I've read this from so many other people too, that it became therapy for a lot of people to go and see this show. And like they would come up to you and tell you stories at the stage door.
Yeah, it was really intense. We would say like the stage door was act 2 of that show. Because act 1 was the show. It didn't have an intermission, and it was 90 minutes. So you do that. Then you go to the stage door and you just listen. You just listen and support and see them. You know, that's important. It's like, I see you. Yes, I do. And you are legitimate. You're valid. You're a valid human being. Your story is, I hear you. And, you know, the New York Times at the time was like trying to get me to do like a comment on a story of like gayness is like yesterday's news. And we're like in a post gay society where it's like not even a big deal to be gay anymore. And, you know, like.
Wait, how long ago was this?
This was in 2015. It was the New York Times, and there was a particular reporter whose idea for a story was like how it was not an issue anymore, and it was completely safe, and it wasn't even, you know, taboo or anything, you know, or dangerous. And anyway, she wanted me to weigh in on this. And I just said, I won't, because you should come. A, you should leave New York sometime. And B, you should come to the stage door and just listen to the people who came from Kansas, although Kansas, yay, Kansas. But, you know, who came from Texas, who came from Louisiana, who came from, you know, Utah, all the way here to see this show, because these pilgrimages to like the source, someone feeding you something that validates your existence. That's what they came for. So that, you know, it's dangerous to be gay in a lot of places still. It's not. Well, like it's not
what
cute.
You were just saying about your parents and that whole literal almost half of the nation that still believes that today, as we're recording this, that being gay or being black or being a not straight white person is just wrong. And there's no foundation for that other than that's what my parents taught me, so it's got to be true.
No, I know there's a lot of fear, but there was that moment when we were up, when Fun Home was happening. It was like gay marriage passed. You know, universal health care passed while we were up. President Obama was in the White House. It was a different world, and we were riding this wave of love and acceptance and progressive ideology and all of this, you know, taking the culture forward and expanding and finally embracing diversity and all of this stuff that just has had this massive, horrific backlash afterwards. But at the time, we were just like in euphoria going, this is finally here. The day we've fought for, and our predecessors, you know, we're standing on the shoulders of these people who at the Stonewall riot stood up and said, hell no, you know, we are the lineage of this. And now it's like, we are just suffering the pendulum swinging the other way and just like knocking the shit out of us. And, you know, it will swing back again. And you have to believe that during the time when we were enjoying all of that safety and acceptance. It seems so crazy to say like that was some kind of anomaly, but it's true. Those people were seething with anger and raging and gathering their forces and gathering their strength. And they're coming after us. They are not done. Mm-hmm. The abortion ban is the first thing. The next thing is my marriage. It's coming. They're coming after me and not you, but like us, the queers. They're not done. So, it's just like that fun home era was a beautiful time in history. And we really got lulled into a sense of complacency, I think. I felt like safe. And
so what do you do now to stay active in the space of like raising awareness and staying and pushing the envelope forward?
Well, I do it a lot of the time just through my shows. Like I do these solo shows out and about, and I make a point just to talk about my family to as many houses full of people as I can. Because it's important for them to see an individual that they've come to care about and like, and then say, I want to talk to you about my family, because that's important. My wife and my life and how, we live in Lauren Boebert land. She's my representative. Lauren Boebert is my representative because I live on the Western Slope. I'm in her district. So I was out of town shooting this show a lot this year. And seeing Colorado from a distance is always different than being in it. It's like when you travel to Europe and you see America from someone else's perspective. It's like, wow, we look like a bunch of
fat idiots.
Idiots. We look like a bunch of idiots. They do like to say, you start telling people you're Canadian because you just don't want to take shit in the bars anymore. You're like, I'm from Canada. Yeah, good old Canada.
No, I ran into that when I was traveling a couple of years ago before the pandemic. Yeah, it was just what I was afraid to travel once Trump got elected. I really was, because they assumed that, again, all Americans have to feel that way. And I'm like, no, not at all. Like, that's not how the other half of us thinks, right? And it speaks to the pendulum that you said, keeps going back and forth, and we are gonna swing back and forth, and that's just the nature of our culture, I guess, for now, unfortunately. So it's going to take a couple generations of, I think, everybody growing up with the internet to realize how connected we all are and how not different we all are fundamentally.
I hope that that's a good thing. Yeah. That's the one good thing about growing up with the internet. There's some other bad things, like trying to talk to somebody who's grown up with the internet. But other than that, like, their beliefs hopefully will be more global. There will be a globalization of people's like core beliefs.
Yeah. Well, it's just finding people, I guess, finding your tribe a lot more easily. And I talk to people who are basically like my age. I'm about to be 42, so like my age, a little bit older. So I was one of the very few years that grew up analog and became digital in college. So I know what it's like to have a modem, and then I didn't broadband till my freshman year of college. And so I know both worlds. I remember what it's like. I only had a cell phone in the case of emergencies in high school because it was so expensive to make a call. I just think like there's so much that we can teach that generation about awareness. Like, look up at an elevator, see who's around you. Look up and make eye contact.
I want to say one thing about millennials, if you can.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't want people saying certain and important anymore. There, I'm done. That's all I got.
Well, that is a very important thing to talk about.
It's important. When you're on an airplane and your flight attendant says, I'm going to give you an important announcement. I'm like, oh God, we're done. We're doomed. We're down. We're so screwed. We're so screwed.
Yeah, there's little things. Spell check. Oh, who was I talking to the other day? That it was a mom of 4 kids, 2 of which are in high school, who was saying that spelling is not emphasized much anymore in the curriculum because it doesn't need to be. Everyone's got spell check in their pocket.
Oy, oy, oy. Okay. Anyway,
Right?
I mean, I'm the last generation that learned cursive. Did you learn cursive?
Yes. I
Oh,
knew cursive.
nobody even they don't teach it anymore. It's like oldie
Mm-mm.
timey. It's like learning Roman numerals or what, you know what I mean? It's like learning Latin. They stopped teaching
Yeah.
Latin. I was like, I don't really use it. Cursive. When's the last time you opened a letter that was written in cursive by someone's? Remember those letters you'd get from your aunt as a child, and you'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, look at this."
Well, now that's why calligraphers are so important and expensive for wedding invites, right?
Important.
Because no one knows how to calligraphy anymore. I'm just making up all sorts of words.
Calligraphy. It's important.
It's important. It's important to learn how to calligraphy.
It's important.
It's important. Unsinkable Molly Brown. Let's just
Oh God.
let's just start leaving out consonants.
Oh my.
Oh my. It reminds me of a South Park episode where they visited the planetarium. Do you remember that? Do you ever watch South Park?
Yes, because it takes place in Colorado. I didn't see the planetarium.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, there's
Is
one
it-
guy, he just couldn't say T's. So he's like, all right, everyone come visit the planetarium. It was just, I don't remember why, but now
God.
whenever I see the word planetarium, my friends and I are always like, planetarium?
Planetarium.
Unsinkable Molly Brown.
Okay.
Tell me the journey of this story, of this show, because it's been around in multiple incarnations in a while, and then it was going to come to Broadway, and then it wasn't, and then now in the middle of a pandemic, this cast recording that just was released pretty recently before we're recording this was recorded, I believe, December 21st, 2021 was recorded. So it was like as we were getting
did. It seems like it's recently. Yeah. Within the last 6 months, we came in and we sang it, which is weird because we hadn't done the show in so long. We had to relearn it. There was rehearsals involved in this cast album, which was bizarre, and masks and social distancing. And we hadn't seen each other for a long time. By the time we went in, we had it scheduled and then canceled. And then we had it scheduled and then canceled. And then we had it scheduled. And we were like, and it was right in the middle of another surge. So we were like, oh God, it's going to go down the crapper again. And then we were like, let's just do it. Let's just throw caution to the wind. And we'll all sing in our little booths with our little, it was so demoralizing, but still we did it. And, the result is we had this nice documentation of the production that wasn't, we got up, we ran for like 2-3 weeks. And then one day, instead of going to work, we cleaned out our dressing rooms, and that was it. Never to be seen again until, rehearsal for this cast album, it was necessary actually to have a little bit of closure with each other. So we got to at least have like that moment of closure finally, because it was really abrupt, as everyone's was. But some people got to come back and have like a redux, but we did not. We had abrupt interruptus, and it was never to be picked up again. So that
nice call back to the Latin there. Abruptus interruptus.
Yeah, interruptus. Skidus interruptus. And we it was really just it was a beautiful production. Oh my God, the design was gorgeous and the cast was awesome. And we were in this lovely little theater, and it was an off-Broadway production. It was not a Broadway production. We were hoping it would transfer. All those things have evaporated. I just think there's just so many shows queued up now, because there were things that were supposed to go in last season, and now they have been bumped, and those things have been bumped. It's like this horrible domino effect of things that could have almost gotten in that are just never going to get in now. And I think that's where Molly Brown sits, unless someone miraculously comes in and it's like, this is what we need right now. But I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen.
Is there any sort of personal I mean, you're the lead, right? You're the title role. You're Molly Brown in the show Molly Brown. So, and reviews were like of your performances were positive, and everything is going great. And then like the show itself just gets put on hold. Is that did you take that personally, or is that just like, well, that's showbiz, kid, and just move on to the next Apple TV series?
Me personally, I took it personally that we had to go off Broadway and not on Broadway. Personally, I took that personally because, if I was a bigger name on Broadway, I would have been able to carry a show in. But as Beanie Feldisha just found out, sometimes that's not the best thing for everybody. But I don't know. I just think it did what it was supposed to do. Sometimes I just have to think like, God, it did what it was supposed to do. It was nice. It did what it was supposed to do. I'm not sure there's an audience for this particular script in today's climate. I'm not positive that it was like relevant enough to have a Broadway revival. It might have been because she is a really powerful political activist, a female political activist in a time where women couldn't even vote. And she got a ton of stuff done in her life. She died at 60 in New York City studying acting. There's so many crazy facts about Molly Brown. She was at the Barbizon Hotel studying acting in New York City at the age of 60. She had a stroke and died. She started the ASPCA. She started this thing in Denver called the Dumb Friends League, which is still in existence today. It rescues dogs and cats. And from that, it was the first of its kind in the country. There were no there was dog catchers, and then but this is like an organization that helps homeless pets. Molly Brown started that. She separated the juvenile court system from the adult court system. If you were 14 and you robbed something, you would go to prison back in her time. And she was like, this is not a good place for young people. So, because they just end up being more criminalized in incarceration and then come out way, way worse than when they went in. Yeah. And so she petitioned and had to go through a bunch of things to get her voice heard, to get that legislation passed. Actually, she ran for Congress twice. She couldn't even vote. There was a ton of things. She's a hugely active person, and she was Catholic. That's the other thing. She was really Catholic. So she had all of that Catholic Church money, but she got this giant cathedral built in Denver. She donated a ton of money to get this giant cathedral built in Denver, which I find that kind of interesting, that she was a religious person who was also like a socialist and a compassionate, authentically compassionate for the less thans, the people who had less. I just don't find that to be the case with highly Christian folks in today's climate. I don't find the compassion thing to be connected to their belief systems anymore, which is why you can vote for a person like Trump and call it religion, because otherwise there's a giant disconnect here for the teachings of the person that is the religion is based on.
We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. Let's do as I say, not as I do. And yeah, I grew up in North Carolina, in a very Southern Baptist, every corner sort of town. And it was immediate. And that turned me off so much. To organized religion at the time, just because I felt judged. And I was like, wait, this is supposed to be the place where I'm accepted the most, yet I feel the most ostracized. And then I think there's probably parallel to your love for the theater. And I gravitated towards musical theater and show choir, because those are where the misfits went. Those are where the people who didn't fit anywhere else all came together.
Show choir. Oh, and thank God for theater in high school. If it wasn't for theater in high school, I don't know what people do now. They have bad mental health. Kids are struggling with mental health issues because they don't have that catch-all for us. Imagine what the state of your brain would have been if you didn't have that to go to.
Well, that's like, do I rob a store? Do I start smoking something to try to fit in with that group of friends?
You could have gone any direction, right? There's a point in your life where you could easily go kind of any direction. And that's the point where theater steps in and says, come here, children, come over here. Let's think about what this writer was trying to say. That's how would you play this part? Let's see, let's see how you can walk and talk on stage and be in front of other human beings. That's a huge, huge thing when you're that age.
Yeah, theater is the serotonin drug dealer. Like, do you want a hit? You want a hit of the happy juice? All right, go step in the spotlight.
Applause. That's what applause does to your brain. Messes you up pretty good too.
I know. I love it. And yeah, it's especially for people who don't have a happy childhood or a happy home, or they're not good in school. Like, there are so many reasons why you can turn to theater, whether it is the writing or costume design. Like, there's so much to do where you're not on stage, right? Like stage management. If you like just the organization, you'd like to be around. It's just the group of like-minded people who like to create and imagine and pretend in a way that you can't get at other jobs. I'm sorry. It's not there. You've got to express that creativity. And I think, kind of going back a little bit to the herd mentality of like, we are animals. I think deep down, right, we need to belong. We need to be in a herd. We need to feel accepted. And so it's really hard to be a lone wolf. And I guess I keep that up consistently because, like, look at what happened to everybody during the pandemic. People who were living by themselves started to legit go nuts.
Like, a lot of people just died. They gave up.
Yeah.
It was really a interesting, bad social experiment. But it brings the truth out too. It's like, we need each other. We need each other. And that group of people, when you're sweeping the stage and someone's in the light booth and someone is like, on headset right, that group of people, then you get to be, it doesn't matter who you are in it. It really doesn't matter if you're the one in the spotlight or running the spotlight. You just, oh God, it was the best. The best theater in school.
Yeah. Do you miss that? Do you miss the... I mean, I guess that's a stupid question because, of course, you're going to go back to theater if you have a chance. But like, you're doing so much TV and film now. But what do you miss? I guess, what do you miss the most? The most about being on stage?
I love rehearsals. I love playing. I'm directing something right now, so I get to go into rehearsals next week with a group of people. I'm directing Hurricane Diane, written by Lisa Krohn's wife, Madeline George, who is
nice.
I think one of the main script supervisors, something like that, on Only Murders in the Building right now. I keep seeing her name go by, and that's a TV show you should watch if you haven't watched it.
I love it.
Love it, on Hulu. Madeline George, she wrote this killer play called Hurricane Diane, and it's an environmental comedy horror show. It's all of these things. It's about Dionysus coming back to Earth and having to get some acolytes so that she can get her power back, because she's afraid we're going to screw up the earth so much that there will be no one to worship her. So she is returned to get, so she moves into this cul-de-sac and she becomes like a permaculture landscape architect who seduces all the women in this cul-de-sac. And it is freaking hilarious. And then also terrifying.
It's so oddly specific.
It's so oddly specific. And yet it's everyone's story. So I can't wait. I just cast it with local people here. I'm in Colorado. I just finished shooting in New York. I came home and I started, holding auditions at this little theater in Carbondale, Colorado, at the Thunder River Theater Company, where I'm going to do Hurricane Diane in a very small town in Colorado, which I am so excited about. I mean, that's part of the activism. Fun. It's like, I'm just going to bring this queer ass environmental piece right into the middle of downtown Carbondale, Colorado. On a small scale, we do what we can.
It's important. I think you touched on something that's really important to point out, is that in order to move forward with everybody, with it not being a big deal to have any sexual preference anymore, part of what we need to see represented in mainstream media is our same-sex couples and interracial couples, for that matter, that aren't a plot point. It just is.
Right. Hello. That is it. I love what you just said, because that is the drum I have been beating for years. It's like, can we just have like a gay person instead of like that big straight white guy? Can't you just hire a smoking hot dyke, please? And just like, don't change a fucking line. Sorry. But just put somebody in more interesting in that part, please. Suddenly your really mediocre show, it's really interesting. Like for me, I watch Stranger Things and I see like the big like sheriff guy. What's his name? Like I always imagine him.
Willie? Sheriff Willie? No, Will. I'm thinking
No, the
Winona
main
Ryder.
guy.
Yeah.
Winona Ryder's love interest.
Hopper.
Yeah, Hopper. I just think, what if Hopper was just like a big smoking hot dyke? What if Hopper was played by Becca Blackwell? I'd watch that.
and Winona Ryder's still the love interest. Yes.
100%. Like, and you just don't address it. You just be like, and.
Yeah.
Next. Next.
The first time I noticed that was I forget the name of the movie. It was with Nick Offerman. It was a little indie movie about 4 or 5 years ago with Nick Offerman and his daughter. Like the wife's dead. He's widowed. His daughter is like, it's a coming of age little story subplot for his daughter, who just happens to have a girlfriend, and it's never mentioned of like, oh, you're not dating a boy or whatever the case is. And I was always waiting for that like twist of like, oh, that's because you're gay. But that's because that's what we've been trained to watch or trained to see. And it never happened. And at the end, I was like, that was the coolest thing I've ever watched. That was so nice. That was so nice.
That's part of like, the old movie, Bound.
Yeah.
Bound is a great film. It's like it's a heist movie. 100%. It's by the same people who did The Matrix.
The Wachowskis. Yeah,
the Wachowskis made this film right before The Matrix. I think making this is what got them that deal to direct that. But it's a beautiful love story, and the fact that it's two women is sort of just not a plot point, which is great. I'm writing a musical.
The Wachowskis. I'm going to come back to that. The Wachowskis are two people who have both independently had sex changes. I don't know if they actually transitioned.
Yeah, they did. I think they both medically transitioned. I'm not sure about the medical side of it, but they both, are trans women. Both of them are. Yeah,
they both identify as female now. Yeah. So you're writing a musical. What can you tell us about it?
I am writing a musical with
stars a podcaster who talks over. No.
Oh my God! There is a podcaster in it. That's so funny.
Yes, you better call me.
Yes. Well, she's a female identifying human.
Oh, okay,
sorry,
okay.
But otherwise you'd be great at it. You'd be great in it for a couple parts. But it's called Starstruck, and Emily Sayers of the Indigo Girls is writing the music, and I am co-writing the book with my friend Marianne Stratton, and it is a Cyrano adaptation. A love story that takes place in Idaho in a dark sky reserve. So it's an environmentalist love story with Indigo Girls music, and it's beautiful. So look for that, because it's going to jump off of the page any minute now into like a place where people are standing up and singing.
I want to come see that reading. So let's connect. Let's connect.
Okay.
All right. So 3 closing questions I ask everyone to wrap up the episodes. The first one, very simply, is just what motivates you?
What motivates me is hope. I'm motivated by hope. I feel like it's contagious, and if you lose hope, there's no after. You have to keep assuming that what you do is going to make a difference and proceed. That's what motivates me.
What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
I would say get to the point where you're comfortable being yourself sooner. I know it's like a hard thing to figure out who yourself is, but I feel like for me, there was a lot of years I'd spent trying to look outside and trying to like be the thing that was castable, instead of like being like, as soon as I started telling my own truth and being my own authentic self, like the floodgates opened and my career just went whoosh. And I was like, well, there you go. Because I was warned away from being myself from a lot of people who thought they were helping me. So I felt like I had a lot of like external fears stuck on top of me, where I'm not generally a fearful person, but I felt like I was extraordinarily cautious early in my career when I maybe, didn't need to be. So it's a different world also. But I would say, figure out who you are and then lean into that.
Embrace what makes you different. Yes.
They all say that, everybody says that, but it is true.
So, final question. This is the hardest one. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you could see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Oh my gosh. That's a horrible question. Oh gosh. Oh, Sunday in the Park with George, probably.
With Annalee?
Yeah. Yes, with Annalee Ashford.
Oh,
I loved
so
the original cast so much too. I loved, Mandy Patinkin in that, and I love any version of Sunday in the Park with George I can get. That writing, it's sort of like a peony, those flowers that just keep opening and opening and opening and opening. You think it's done opening, and it's like, I'm just getting started. That's what sometimes writing does. You could just sort of listen to it over and over and over again and hear something new every time, because you're different. So you bring some different way of listening to it. I don't know how he did what he did.
He's a genius.
I wanted to work with him before he died so bad, and I didn't. I couldn't. I was in the same room with him like 3 times, and I couldn't even go up and talk to him.
Really? Oh.
I was just like, I know I'm going to say something stupid, so I'd rather just not have that happen.
Well, that's your advice to your younger self. Go talk to Sondheim, damn it.
Yeah, I know. Just like a little bit younger, like 3 years ago. 3 years ago.
All right, where can we find you online?
At the Beth Malone on Instagram, at Hebe Fluff on Twitter.
What?
And that's about it.
Hebe Fluff?
Hebe Fluff. HeebyFluff at Hebe Fluff. I know. I just thought it would be like covertly on Twitter at first. When I first joined, it was stupid. I should have just been myself. See?
All right. Well, thank you so much. You can get more of me and other great episodes like this at thetheaterpodcast.com on the web. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at theater_podcast, on TikTok at the Theater Podcast. This has been edited by Well-Rounded Hoodlum Productions, music by Jukebox the Ghost. And of course, Beth, thank you so much for being here.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.